On the other side, Tristan, the bishop who eats pizza for breakfast, expels Marlies from the Church of Poland, claiming that her group of adventurers had suffered too many failures and caused too much violence. To make matters worse, the group's leader, Golova, had become a criminal, and Tristan stated he could not allow anyone associated with such an infamous group to remain part of the church. Marlies desperately begged Tristan, admitting that she had indeed used lightning magic in a restaurant, but argued that she only did it to punish the owners for serving bad food. Clearly, this woman had no idea just how much of a Karen she had become, and Tristan had already completely lost his patience with her excuses. However, since Marlies was a powerful mage and a valuable asset to the church, Tristan offered her one last chance. If she could complete a task for him, he promised to grant her the title of priestess. He then served her a glass of wine from the enemy empire opposing Poland, and asked Marlies to drink it. Trusting him, she did, and Tristan smiled like a true devil, flashing all 32 of his golden teeth. After finishing the wine, Marlies agreed to take on the task, and with a voice dripping with malice, Tristan ordered her to help the church assassinate the third princess, Lisa. Marlies was horrified. She had no desire to be involved in such a vile and treacherous act, but it was already too late. The wine she drank had been cursed, the same curse that had once consumed Lyslot's life until Kurt saved her with his magical stew. Falling to her knees in agony, Marlies heard Tristan reveal the truth. She was now cursed. Her body would reject anything except water, and within a month, she would die of starvation. Only Tristan had the power to break the curse. He made it very clear. If she wanted to live, she would have to obey him. Feeling utterly betrayed and cornered, Marlies was forced to accept his demands. She is the same figure we saw earlier, unconscious within the magic circle, lying helpless before the demon lord. A sinister hint that Tristan might be a demon, or even the demon lord himself. Back at the Atelier, Ulyssia wondered why the enemy had stopped chasing Lyslot or trying to curse her again. She suspected that the enemy either hadn't found their location yet, or had tried, but failed because Kurt's cooking had continuously neutralized the curse. With that concern set aside, she turned her attention to another worry, Mimiko, who had already arrived in town with Oilia and was currently busy setting up several traps to track the enemy. While Kurt served the food, he casually mentioned that Lyslot no longer needed to fear curses, revealing that the entire mansion now functioned as a giant barrier that reflected curses back at whoever cast them. However, since Kurt didn't want to hurt anyone, instead of violently reflecting the curse, the spell simply made the aggressor glow. At the very moment Kurt finished explaining, a hidden enemy lurking in the shadows attempted to cast their most powerful curse on Lyslot, only to immediately start glowing like an LED light. Ulyssia leaves to deliver this new information to Mimiko. Meanwhile, Kurt suggests to Lyslot that they also go out to do some shopping and enjoy the city a little. But it isn't because Kurt needs to buy clothes or anything like that. He simply realized that ever since Lyslot arrived, she hadn't set foot outside, and he wanted her to have some fun at least once. Although Lyslot really wanted to go with Kurt, she declined the invitation, without explaining that it would be dangerous for her to leave the mansion. Meanwhile, atop the city walls, General Raid sensed a strong premonition that something bad was about to happen as he watched a dense, ominous mist slowly approach the city. He suspected that a monster attack was imminent and shared his concerns with his subordinate, Generic, who tried to reassure him by saying that this time the walls were much taller and sturdier. On the other side, Mimiko, Oilia, and Ulyssia were tracking the evil mage who had attempted to curse Lyslot earlier. Unfortunately, they couldn't extract any information from him, as he had already been eliminated by his own allies. Oilia, however, seemed more fascinated by Kurt's abilities, noticing that the mage's corpse was still glowing brightly. It made her think that if someone as powerful as Kurt joined the mission, they could probably find the enemy within a single day. Even so, Ulyssia still didn't want to involve Kurt in such dangerous affairs, and decided that they would handle the situation themselves. Mimiko offered to scout the surroundings and gave Ulyssia strict orders not to allow Lyslot to leave the mansion under any circumstances, now that they knew the enemy was already inside the city. At that moment, the emergency bell echoed loudly across the city, and Generic and O'Raid received word from a subordinate that a monster attack had begun. The magic squad quickly illuminated the area beyond the walls, revealing a terrifying sight. Several thousand undead skeletons marching toward the city. Mimiko also picked up on this using her spatial detection magic, and immediately suspected that the real target of the attack was Lyslot. Without wasting any time, O'Raid moved to defend the city on the front lines and ordered Generic to immediately start evacuating the citizens. Generic, however, wanted to fight alongside O'Raid, believing their chances of survival would be greater if they faced the skeletons together. But before they could even properly position themselves, the skeletons began walking straight into the walls, and then simply vanished into nothing. Mimiko received a strange report from her ghost subordinates and commented on it to Ulysses, who immediately remembered that months ago, Kurt had repaired the northern and western walls of the city all by himself. And perhaps one of Kurt's special abilities is what's causing this bizarre phenomenon. Either way, it's great news. Even O'Ray begins to suspect that the boy who repaired the walls back then might actually be the one behind this mysterious turn of events. Elsewhere, it's revealed that Marlice is the one summoning the undead. She has already exhausted all of her mana, but the demon she is bound to still isn't satisfied and forces her to continue summoning more undead using the last remnants of her magical power. Marlice can't believe this is how her life will end. She reveals that Tristan made a pact with an advanced demon solely to assassinate the princess, and now that same demon is torturing her, forcing her to endlessly summon undead in the ruins of the forest near the border town. After summoning only 2 or 3 skeletons, Marlice completely drains her mana, but the merciless demon compels her to burn her own life force to keep creating more skeletons. Seeing how the situation in the city is worsening, Ulysses realizes she must ensure Lisa's safety. She returns to the Atelier to check on Kurt and Lisa. She shares what she learned about the attack on the city and reveals that the monsters continue to vanish as soon as they touch the walls. She says even the knights were shocked by it, but who wasn't surprised? That's right, Kurt. He explains that this sort of thing is actually pretty common back in his hometown and really isn't a big deal. Reflecting on his words, Ulysses gets the perfect idea to protect the city. She recalls the crystals Kurt had obtained earlier and realizes she could use them to divert the monsters away from the source of the problem. She tells Kurt to stay in the Atelier with Lisa. When they ask what she plans to do, she replies that she's going to destroy the source of the evil through the ruins. Our ever-willing protagonist offers to go with her, but she declines, asking him to stay by Lisa's side. Kurt, modest as always, assumes she's leaving behind because he's too weak. Someone really needs to whisper to this man that he's not weak. He jokes that she should hurry before he dies trying to follow her. Trying to encourage him, Ulysses softly tells him that she's not leaving him behind because he's useless, but because there are trackers lurking around and she needs him to protect Lisa. Kurt's face lights up, happy that he's not considered burden. Without wasting another second, Ulysses rushes off to retrieve the crystals. After locating the stones, she heads to the knight's barracks. Since she already has a relationship of trust with General Raid, he immediately recognizes her. After exchanging greetings, she introduces Mimiko and Lady Oilia. Recognizing who Oilia is, O'Raid quickly realizes that the princess must be in the city. He offers to assign some of his knights to protect Lisa. Little does he know that his knights aren't nearly as strong as the person currently guarding Lisa. Ulysses refuses his offer and goes about her business. She informs him that she needs him to create a distraction at the gate against the monsters, while she heads to the ruins to destroy the monsters' core on her own. Although the plan sounds solid, O'Raid doesn't believe her. With what weapon does she plan to destroy the ruins? And with what army? All these questions hang in the air until she reveals the stone she's carrying. It seems impossible. No way, he cries. I can't let you do this and get yourself killed. However, she insists that it will work and asks him to just do his part. O'Raid refuses to let her go alone and offers to accompany her, assigning his assistant Generic to handle the distraction. When Generic also refuses to stay behind, O'Raid convinces him otherwise, and they move forward with the plan. The girls depart, and then Generic brings out a cup of drink as if it were their final drink before the battle. Traditionally, they should drink and smash the cup, but they believe they'll survive, so instead they pour the water out, hoping to have something better to drink when they return alive. But will they really make it back? Meanwhile, at the Atelier, Kurt feels useless. Everyone is fighting and working hard, while he's just standing there, remembering the words of an old man from his village, that a stone reflects the person who shapes it. He decides to forge a sword for himself. He recalls how sharp Danzo's blade was, and tries to replicate it. At the gate to the ruins, Ulysses clutches a stone, praying it will work. She asks everyone to cover their eyes and then throws it. With a single impact, all the monsters vanish. Even O'Raid is stunned. Is that some secret weapon from the Atelier? He asks. In reality, it's a personal weapon crafted by Kurt. Without wasting time, they immediately mount their horses and charge toward the remaining monsters in the ruins. Meanwhile, Kurt holds a blade he created. To him, the sword seems useless. He can't believe he made something so stupid, thinking it would be rated D- or even F grade. As he stares at his failure, in disbelief, Lee enters. When she sees the sword, she thinks it looks great, and when she discovers the blade can use magic, she becomes even more fascinated. Kurt asks if she wants it, and Lee happily accepts, her cheeks turning red with joy. However, Kurt senses that her smile is fake. He realizes something is wrong. She's scared. Determined, he confronts her, and he's right. Lee reveals that someone is trying to kill her, and that she's the reason he and Ulysses have been so on edge. Kurt lowers his head in sadness. He doesn't hate protecting her. On the contrary, he hates the fact that he can't save her. He recalls that Golova had been spotted lurking around the western ruins, and figures Ulysses must be chasing the monsters hiding there. He looks at Lee, feeling crushed that he can't protect someone so special to him, someone who doesn't even realize how important she is to him. Lee, however, feels happy. But Kurt ruins a moment by telling her that she isn't the only special person to him. Everyone from the Sakura clan is special, accepting her defeat. Lee admits that she also feels useless and powerless. Since they both share that feeling, Kurt suggests that they find a way to become useful. He proposes they head to the western ruins. Lee reminds him that monsters are spread out across the 8 exits of the city, but Kurt insists they must carve a path with their own strength. He can already imagine a way out amid the desperation. Meanwhile, at the ruins, Ulysses senses something bad approaching and decides to retreat. Will something terrible happen with Kurt's arrival at the ruins? Or will he manage to save them all?